Hello there, welcome to a new video series that I plan to be starting. That is the development of a video game I'm going to be calling Cube Apocalypse, as of now at least. The idea is that it's going to be a mobile game on Android and iPhone, and it's going to be about zombies attacking a player, and you have to shoot them off. The idea is pretty simple, so I don't think that the game will be that difficult to make. But it's also worth noting that I have not dabbled in game development for the past 2 years. So before we get into game development, I want to introduce myself a little bit and just kind of explain to you who I am, and that's just in case maybe you might see some of my character come out while we are developing this video game. So to start, I just graduated high school. I'm 19 years old and I've been programming since I was 12 years old. Since I was 8, I wanted to learn how to program. So I told my parents, and by the age of 9, they purchased me a high school 1-semester Java programming textbook. So I tried to read it and I did not understand the math, so I put the book down in defeat and tried again next year. And I did that once a year. I tried to read it over the summertime until I turned 12 years old when I actually completed the book. From there, I went on to the second semester, and that was Android app development. So ever since then, I've been in the app development field, but I've been playing around with a lot of other things, one of those being Unity. So that's enough about me. Let's start talking about developing this video game. You just saw me create a Trello board with 2 tasks to create a basic enemy and a prototype map. But of course, I completely forgot what I just told myself I was going to do and decided to work on movement instead. So what you're seeing here is movement that I did not write correctly, so I just had to make a couple tweaks and boom, a working movement system. Then I remembered that I was supposed to work on a map and a basic enemy. So now what you're seeing is me working on a map. This map is just a prototype map, so I'm just throwing some blocks together and adding a nice prototype material to them. And with any video game, we need some nice camera movement that follows the character. Then I made the zombie. And I don't know how to model, so I figured cubes would be just fine. When I finished making the zombie, I jumped in the game and started walking around, and I realized I have no collision with anything but the floor. I did some Googling and I found that if I added a rigid body, that should fix the issue, but it didn't do that. Instead, it bounces across the floor like this. So I realized that I made my movement system completely wrong and I needed to delete everything and start from scratch. Then I realized that actually I only needed to change one line of code, so I rolled the code back and made that change. And it works now. Yay, collision. So next up on the list now is coding enemy movement, so I'm going to go ahead and write some enemy movement. So this code is actually a bit more difficult than any of the code that we've written so far. And think about it, how would I make an enemy chase after the player? One way to do it is to have the enemy look at the player and then walk towards them, and that would work until we introduce an obstacle in the way, like a wall. The enemy needs to understand that there's something in front of it and then walk around it. So now we need to have pathfinding. I'm using Unity's built-in pathfinding. All I need to do is bake the map, and then I can use that code to grab information and then write my own code to have the enemy travel towards the player. And here you can see the enemy is walking around the wall and trying to get to the player. So I'll check that off my Trello list, and then we will get on to enemy shooting, something fun. Woo! So when I started thinking about how the shooting's gonna work, I realized that before I do that, I should probably create some sort of health. So I created health, added a health bar, and then I modeled a little rectangle for a bullet, and then that's what I'm going to be shooting. Here you can see me kind of planning this out ahead of time on Trello before I start making it. So I wrote a health script that works for just about everything. I could attach a health script to a wall if I wanted to, and then I went ahead and wrote the health bar script that is connected to the health script. And so you gotta believe me, whenever you get hurt, it's gonna go down, just like any other health bar. Then I modeled a bullet aka a red rectangle. Then I created a shooting script, which pretty much what it does is it spawns a bullet in, and once it does that, it's the bullet's job to move. So I didn't write the code for the bullet yet, so instead I can just draw this really cool art. Yep, see? More swirls. Then I started working on the bullet script, and I included two attributes: the speed at which the bullet travels and the amount of damage that the bullet takes. So when I went to go test it, I realized that I need to have a limit on how much you can shoot. Otherwise you just get this rapid fire thing going on here like a machine gun. So I added a fire time, and all of a sudden we have this nice shooting effect. So I marked that off Trello, and I realized that I have everything to play test the game in its very early stages. So I went ahead and dropped a few enemies down, and I tried to play the game. There's no game audio, of course, and the enemies can't hurt you yet, so you kind of just have to play pretend, but it works, so that's fun. Woo! A working playthrough. You'll notice that I'm having a hard time hitting the enemies, and that's because I'm using a computer keyboard, which on the phone you would have a full analog stick, so you could turn 360 degrees to your preference, but on a keyboard I can only turn by 45 degrees at a time, depending on which keys I'm hitting, so I kind of am missing some range, but you get the point. I think it's fun. I enjoyed playing it. Next up, I want to add a wave spawner so they come in waves, and then I want to add a particle system so they kind of explode when you kill them, and a few other fun things that happen, like when a bullet hits a wall, maybe some particles spew out of the wall. Really, I think there's a lot of fun stuff I could do with this, and as well, maybe in the next video I'll work on a pretty map. I have some really beautiful assets that I plan to be using. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and you'll be alerted the next devlog that I publish. That's all I have to say. Have a good evening.